If you're doing any kind of gated content on your website where people have to put in a form and their email address to get that information, you want to make sure you're getting valid people. How many times have you gotten like Joe Blow at forgetme.com trying to get your content without sharing that information about themselves? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can hook up to a service that can validate those emails before you hit this submit button so that you can stop them at the gate and tell them their email is invalid and they've got to put in a valid email. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, this is David with TechSmart Boss. I want to share this idea with you that I just implemented on my website, might be of use. If you're doing any kind of content marketing, and I've been podcasting a lot about this recently, you always want to convert those into leads. The way you do that, you have a lead magnet, you have a form, you have something where you're collecting information about the user. So for example, I'm on my Yerby.com website on the trial page. If I scroll down here, you'll see a form where I'm requesting, information. If they want to try my software out, then they're gonna, share some information. I'll email them the download links and the activation. Now, in this particular case, email is essential. They've got to give me a valid email address, or they're not going to get any of the information I'm going to send them. In many cases, like an ebook or a video or something like that, you might have the actual resource on the thank you page. So what many people do, and there's all sorts of privacy concerns and things like that, but they'll come in here and they'll put in a fake email address and they'll just fill out a form kind of like this and just put fake information and submit it in hopes to get that information. If you find that a lot in your case, what I've done is I found this company, this service out there called BriteVerify, BRITE verify.com. This is their website. And they actually have a real-time API that you could pass in an email address, and it's going to go out there and validate if it's a real person on that email server, or if it's a valid domain that can be emailed to. And it's not perfect. I'll talk about the limitations of it, but you can kind of see here if you're under 250K a month, you're talking about a penny an email. So I get about 250 leads a month off my website. Let's imagine that I do 250 verifications. What am I talking about there? 100, about $2.50 a month. I mean, it's a no-brainer almost to kind of get this. And it's not just for preventing people from having unauthorized access to your content, but I do get those scenarios where users have a typo. They forget to put the com on, they put .co instead of .com, or they spell their name or their company name wrong, and they actually do want the information, but they did have a typo. This actually puts in some validation checking. So you'll see here, I'm going to hit submit, and I've got a pretty bad email address here. And you'll see now my form is going to go and run that API. It didn't add any extra time, or it's a negligible amount of time, and come back and tell me I've got an invalid domain, email domain invalid. So it's pretty cool. So if I come in and check, this is kind of set up to be yesterday and a little bit of today so far. You'll see that I've had 26 email verifications processed. 15 was valid. And you'll see I actually caught, a good percentage of them were invalid or unknown. And those are things that those people probably corrected their email or realized that, hey, I got to put a valid email if I want to get this resource. And they went and filled that in. You'll notice this accept all. This is some of the limitations. Some email domains, they actually won't let you do a lookup by user to see if it's a valid user. They're going to accept all email to that domain, and then they'll determine if it's a valid user mailbox or not. Gmail, for example, I think is one of those. So in that case, if they did put one of those in, the email will be accepted, and they still might not get the email. But what's cool about this will help you check out some of those temporary emails. People go out and sign up for Mailinator.com and things like that. It'll help you out in those cases. So affordable and easy to do. Now, how did I do this? Now, I say easy to do, but this does require a developer because they have an API that you've got to program against, and you're going to need the developer to do that, and you're going to need to tie that back in with WordPress and your forms. So, for example, what I did is I use Dropbox Paper. I've talked about that a lot in the podcast. It's a great way to communicate, anything to a remote person. I have a great developer that I've used for a couple years. I found that person on Odesk, now called Upwork.com. And whenever I have these sorts of things, I'll send them the requirement. And that's what I did in this case. So what I did is I put together a document kind of outlining the instructions, giving them some example form code that I use on my website, telling them what I want to do, giving them everything that they needed to do it. And Bright Verify gives you great documentation that walks you through how to use their API. Anybody who's a developer that programs against APIs will be able to implement this pretty easily. Tells you all the response codes and error codes and things like that. So I got real specific in my instructions on what I wanted, and it took about 8 hours of time for my developer to build the script and implement it in WordPress. See here what we end up doing is putting a little bit of code. I say a little bit, but if I kind of scroll down here, you'll see it's a nice little block of code that's doing a lot of exception checking against the return codes that we got. But essentially, we put this on all my templates where I have those forms, and then I make a really slight change to my form, nothing really considerable to my form, and I've got that now in place. So this is really great. Definitely when you're giving information out to users. On the trial form, it's not as important because if they don't put the right email in, they're not going to get the trial information. But let's take a look, for example, on my pricing page. I have this thing called the price calculator where people can real time kind of scenario out what their price might be. And you'll see I do put a content gate because if you're looking at my pricing, I think I should know if you're going to calculate some pricing who you are. And you'll see that this is the type of thing, if they do put in a valid email, let's put an invalid one in again. You'll see I get that. Let's go ahead and put my real email in. And again, this might be where you do a typo and put your wrong email in. But you'll see now this will unlock that gate and take them right into my price calculator at that point. This is the kind of thing that I did want to prevent people from putting invalid emails in. So, a nice, great solution. And also with their reporting, I'm going to actually have indication of how often this is and I can track it. So hopefully you got some ideas from this that you can apply to your website and your organization. Take a look at BriteVerify.com. Does take a little bit of API programming, tying it in with your website. But once you do that, you'll have, I think you'll get more consistent and quality leads into your funnel that you can then bring into your sales process. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, please check us out. We're on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Head out to techsmartboss.com. Join our Facebook community where we share this and a lot more tips and tricks like this. And sign up, and I'll email you as we come out with new podcasts and new content and new free resources like this to help you grow your business by leveraging technology.